Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza is brought to you by Sport Relay. Honest, unbiased, and apolitical. Sport Relay, your connection to the diamond. And by A Complete History of the Major League Baseball Playoffs, Volumes 1 and 2 by Evan Thompson. Relive the glory, the complete history of the Major League Baseball Playoffs. This week on Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza, we go through the top relief pitching stories from this past week. This includes key injuries, Padre dominance, and D-backs woes. We go through the team power rankings and individual power rankings. We hand out the monthly team and individual relief pitching awards. And we visit with our special guest, Anthony Castrovince, a national writer from MLB.com. Stay tuned. Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza begins now. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza. I'm your congested host, Evan Thompson, currently in day 5 of a sinus infection. I also wrote these 2 books right here. We have just completed the 5th week and the first month of the 2025 season, since we're combining the March regular season games with all of April. Our statistics include all games through the end of play on Wednesday, April 30th. Let's take a look at some of the biggest stories from the past week in the world of relief pitching. Some key injuries have happened over the past week. The Cincinnati Reds lost middle reliever Ian Gibaut to a shoulder impingement on April 25th. He went on the 15-day injured list the next day, and there is no timetable for his return. But the 2 biggest blows came to the New York Mets and the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Mets lost both of their left-handed relievers on the same day. Setup man A.J. Minter to a lat strain, and middleman Danny Young to a sprained elbow. The next day, April 27th, the Mets placed Young on the 15-day and Minter on the 60-day injured list. There is no timetable for return for either of them, though we should know more before next week's show. The Arizona Diamondbacks have lost their closer and one of their setup men. Setup man A.J. Puck is on the 60-day IL with a flexor strain in his elbow and has no timetable for return, though he likely will not need surgery. Closer Justin Martinez went on the 15-day IL May 1st with right shoulder fatigue. He will have some imaging done before our next episode. The Diamondbacks did recently regain the services of setup man Kevin Ginkel, who was lights out during their late season surge and run to the World Series in 2023, so that's some good news for them. And good news is something the Diamondbacks relief corps could use, because they have struggled since the end of week 3. Losing Martinez and Puck were a crushing blow, and that's putting it mildly. Note these key statistics and how they progressed from the end of week 3 to the end of week 4 to the end of April. Scoreless outing percentage, 74.1% to 72.0% to 71.1%. Inherited runners scored percentage, 25% to 29% to 31.0%. ERA minus, remember ERA minus, 100 means your league average. Below 100 means you're better than league average. Above 100 means you're not as good as league average, and each number means 1 percentage point. So ERA minus, 87, which is 13% below the league average, to 106, to 108. WHIP, 974, to 1174, to 1298. They were still below the league average at the end of April, since the league average was 1,300, but a jump by over 500 points in 2 weeks is not cause for concern, it's cause for alarm. Strikeout percentage minus walk percentage, 21.5%. to 20.7% to 15.6%. Last week, when they had 20.7%, they led the National League in strikeout percentage minus walk percentage. Now, they're 5th. The San Diego Padres relief corps has dominated the National League through the end of April. They have the top closer and top setup man in the NL, both by significant margins. Additionally, they have the third and fourth best middle relievers in the NL. Furthermore, check out their National League ranks in these key statistics. They are tied for second in goose eggs, tied for the fewest broken eggs, have the best goose egg to broken egg ratio, are second in scoreless outings, are second in scoreless outing percentage by a mere 0.7 of a percentage point, are second in strikeout percentage minus walk percentage, and they have the lowest whip. In fact, they are the only team in the majors with a reliever whip below 1 or below 1,000. That means that the amount of base runners their relief corps has allowed due to a walk or a hit is lower than the amount of innings they've pitched. We'll go through the March and April awards and the team power rankings when we come back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza. We just started May, so that means it is time for the monthly awards, March and April edition. The statistics we used to determine these awards include all relief statistics from March and April, excluding position pitchers. Here we go. The AL Relief Corps of the month is the Athletics. The shakiest AL Relief Corps of the month is the Chicago White Sox. The NL Relief Corps of the month, you already know, it is the San Diego Padres. The shakiest National League Relief Corps of the month is the Washington Nationals. The AL Middle Reliever of the month, with a 100% scoreless percentage, an inherited runners scored percentage of 0 after stranding all 7 runners he inherited, a 429 whip, and a 22.5 strikeout minus walk percentage across 13 appearances for a total of 57.1 points. From the Minnesota Twins, Danny Coulombe. The National League Middle Reliever of the Month with a 91.7 scoreless percentage, a 711 whip, and a 33.3 strikeout minus walk percentage across 12 appearances for a total of 47.3 points. From the San Francisco Giants, Randy Rodriguez. The AL Setup Man of the Month with 7 goose eggs and no broken eggs, a 92.9 scoreless percentage, an inherited runners scored percentage of 0 after stranding both the runners he inherited, a 568 whip, and a 16.7 strikeout minus walk percentage across 14 appearances for a total of 103.9 points. From the Kansas City Royals, Lucas Erceg. The National League Setup Man of the Month with 8 goose eggs and no broken eggs. An 87.5 scoreless percentage. An inherited runner's score percentage of 0 after stranding both the runners he inherited. A 941 whip. And a 22.1 strikeout minus walk percentage across 16 appearances for a total of 116.7 points. From the San Diego Padres, Jason Adam. The American League closer of the month, with 13 goose eggs and no broken eggs. A 100.0 scoreless percentage. He has yet to be scored upon. A 733 whip. And a 24.1 strikeout minus walk percentage across 15 appearances for a major league leading total of 164.9 points. From the Seattle Mariners, Andres Munoz. And finally, the National League closer of the month, with 10 goose eggs and no broken eggs. A 92.9 scoreless percentage. A 571 whip. And a 26.0 strikeout minus walk percentage across 14 appearances for a total of 142.0 points. Also from the San Diego Padres, Robert Suarez. Shifting now to the Team Relief Corps Power Rankings as of the end of April. Statistics run through the end of play on Wednesday, April 30th, like everything else in this episode. They include every pitch thrown in relief by a player wearing that team's uniform, excluding position pitchers. We don't include them because at that point the team has given up. It's not a competitive situation. This table shows the scoring breakdown. Teams are ranked in clutch, run prevention, base runner prevention, and command, weighted as shown. The final score determines the ranking. 0 means right at league average. Positive is better than average. Negative is below average. And each number is a percentage point. So a score of 100 means the team is 100% better than league average. A score of 50 is 50% better. A score of negative 50 is 50% lower. And so on. Didn't do this last week, and I fear it might have caused some confusion, so I'll quickly do it this week. Here is the breakdown of clutch. The ratio of goose eggs to broken eggs is 67%, and the total number of goose eggs is 33%. We did the second part of it to act as a tiebreaker for teams with the same goose egg to broken egg ratio. So teams who have more opportunities and have a really good ratio will get a better score. In run prevention, the scoreless outing percentage makes up 75% of the score. And of course, we're using the scoreless outing percentage that only counts earned runs against the relief pitcher. Inherited runners scored percentage is 15% of the score, and ERA minus is 10% of the score. In base runner prevention, 85% of the score is whip, and 15% of the score is home run percentage. That way, if two pitchers have the same whip, the one who keeps the ball in the ballpark more often will get a higher score. And the only stat we use for command is strikeout percentage minus walk percentage, which is abbreviated as K minus BB percentage. Back to the team power rankings. We'll start with the number 30 team and work our way to number 1. American League teams will appear in red. National League teams will appear in blue. The first number in parentheses after the team name is their rank within their specific league, National League or American League. The number after the comma is new this week. That indicates the change in their major league rank since our last episode. Here we go. Our first group is Pray for a Blowout Win. This includes 2 teams. At number 30, with a score of negative 25.4, is the Washington Nationals. NC means no change in Major League ranking from last episode. Number 29, with negative 19.6, is the Chicago White Sox, who dropped 6 spots. The next group, Stock Up on Tums, has 4 teams. Number 28 is the Colorado Rockies, scoring negative 15.8. At number 27, with negative 14.4 and dropping 1 spot, is the Atlanta Braves. Number 26, with negative 11.0 and also dropping 1 spot, the Minnesota Twins. And at number 25, with negative 10.5, is the Milwaukee Brewers, who also dropped a spot. In the lots of work to do group, we have 3 teams coming in at number 23 overall after climbing 6 spots, with negative 9.3, the Tampa Bay Rays. But they climbed 6 spots, so they're moving the right direction. Number 22, after dropping 1 spot, is the Detroit Tigers with a score of -8.8. 21st, after dropping 2 spots, and with a score of -7.6, is the Los Angeles Angels. Slightly below average has one team this time around. At number 20, scoring -2.7, the Baltimore Orioles. Slightly above average has 3 teams. Number 19 with 1.0 and after dropping 2 spots is the Chicago Cubs. Number 18 with 2.2 after dropping 3 spots is the Texas Rangers. And coming in 17th after climbing 5 spots with 3.2 is the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, for a category we have not used yet, and I'm talking about when these appeared in written form the past 2 seasons, but this new category fits these 2 teams perfectly right now. Sliding and needing to turn it around soon. These teams have double-digit positive scores, meaning their overall score is at least 10% better than the league average, but they're both in a funk. Number 16, after falling 8 spots with 11.4, the Pittsburgh Pirates. And number 15, after falling 4 spots with 12.7 points, the Arizona Diamondbacks. Under the good, we have one team. Number 14, after climbing 4 spots with 13.4, the Boston Red Sox. The very good has 3 teams in this go-around. This trio includes the number 13 Los Angeles Dodgers, who climbed 1 spot with a score of 16.6. Number 12, with a score of 17.1, is the Toronto Blue Jays. And at number 11, after falling 2 spots with a score of 17.6, is the New York Yankees. Against these next 4 teams, you'd better take an early lead. The number 10 Cincinnati Reds, who climbed 3 spots with 22.2 points. Number 9 is the Houston Astros, who fell 2 spots despite their score improving to 32.0. Seems paradoxical. Number 8, after climbing 8 spots with 35.4 points, is the Kansas City Royals. Rounding out the group is the number 7 Seattle Mariners, who fell 1 spot with a score of 35.9. A big jump in scores as we progress to the elite. This group has 4 teams, all of whom scored within the 60s. Number 6, after falling 4 spots with 60.0, is the Miami Marlins. With a score of 61.3 is our number 5 relief corps, the Cleveland Guardians. Coming in 4th after falling 3 spots with a score of 67.5 is the New York Mets. And our number 3 team is the American League Relief Corps of the Month, the Athletics, who climbed 7 spots with their score of 68.5. And our top group, the Outliers, contains our final 2 teams. Both climbed 2 spots to reach their current position in the ranking table. Number 2, with 75.5, the San Francisco Giants. And number 1, with 82.4, our National League Relief Corps of the Month, the San Diego Padres. The biggest gainers in this edition of the rankings are the Royals, who climbed 8 spots, followed by the Athletics with 7, the Rays with 6, the Phillies with 5, and the Red Sox with 4. The biggest drops came from the Pirates, who fell 8 spots, the White Sox, who fell 6, the Diamondbacks and Marlins, who each fell 4, and the Mets and Rangers, who each fell 3. We'll be right back with our guest, Anthony Castrovince. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza. I am here with Anthony Castrovince, national writer from MLB.com, one of the heavyweights. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, and appreciate the heavyweight. I think I'm more of a lightweight, maybe a middleweight on my good days.
Well, Anthony is, even though he's a national writer, he is a proud Clevelander, one of the proudest Clevelanders I've ever met. And last year, I think Cleveland's an underrated city. And last year when I went to cover the Eclipse game, I had a great time. I loved Cleveland. It was cool.
That was a cool experience too. Just what a place to see it. At the ballpark. It probably wasn't like the absolute fullest of eclipses because you have the city surroundings there, but it was a really cool way to kick off the season. That's for sure.
Definitely. That's right. It was the Guardians home opener, and it was Stephen
That's right.
Vogt's home opener as a manager.
Yeah, yeah.
Speaking of Voter, covered him when he was a player here with the Diamondbacks, and I knew he'd be a good manager. So far, it looks like that's been true.
Yeah, it's been trial by fire where predominantly young team that was accustomed to winning but was coming off of a really brutal 2023 season. And you got to give him credit, man. He got the absolute most out of that roster. And we're talking here primarily about bullpens, and he really mastered that bullpen last year in his management of it. He's very aggressive with it all year. Their starting pitching was a mess last season with injuries and underperformance, and they had a historically great bullpen. And I don't know what percentage of that comes down to management, but I think a good deal. Putting guys in the right spots, and he had to really ride some young guys hard. Hunter Gaddis, Tim Herron, Cade Smith. To do what they did was also historic. At their experience level. So give him a lot of credit.
Yeah, and then their closer last year, Emmanuel Clase was the best closer in baseball. Runaway
Yeah.
winner of our American League Closer of the Year last year. And then this year, he got off to a rough start. Can you give us a little more info on that?
Yeah, it really just carried over from what we saw in October, where he just completely ran out of gas, and it was shocking to see. It began with Kerry Carpenter taking him deep in the division series, and then it rolled over into the ALCS against the Yankees, where his performance was a difference maker in the worst of ways. They couldn't afford to have anything go wrong in that back end, and he imploded. So you wondered about him coming into the year, not just because it seemed like the Yankees had kind of figured him out, but also just because of the wear and tear, where it's not just last season. Like I'll call it up here where, his workload in the regular season over the last several years is pretty extreme. He's north of 70 appearances in 4 straight seasons. So not terribly shocking that he would run into a rut somewhere along the line. When it happens at the start of a season, and particularly coming off what we saw in October, it's even more alarming. But he did say that he was dealing with some shoulder soreness, since spring training, and again, not surprising given the workload. In recent days, they kind of backed off him a little bit, had him pitch on the side a few days last week, and so far, knock on wood, seems to have gotten him back on track.
Yeah, last night he went in and had a scoreless appearance in the ninth, and the Guardians ended up winning in the walk-off home run, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting because they're committed to him as the closer in terms of their public comments. Now the usage is a little different, but again, this is a very small sample of time, and they are trying to be mindful of how they use him, easing him back into higher leverage spots. But he came back over the weekend and faced the Red Sox, and he's thrown in the eighth against the lower profile portion of the batting order than he otherwise would have faced in the ninth. And they used Cade Smith in the so-called closer role, and they've used him like that for for more than a week now. And same thing, brought into a tie situation. Of course, there's not going to be a save situation anyway, but it'll be interesting to see, is what I'm saying. Yeah, where the opponent is in the lineup. Is he still the de facto closer? Is he still the ninth inning guy? Or do they kind of play with the leverage a little bit and know they have Cade Smith or Hunter Gaddis for that matter, in reserve for, the heart of the order in the biggest innings. It's kind of a interesting thing to monitor because, players do get accustomed to their roles, but at the same time, you got to do what's best for the team.
As far as Hunter Gaddis and Cade Smith go, we have one more day of games to play to finish off our March-April rankings. But as of
Yeah.
a few minutes ago, I got in yesterday's stats about an hour ago. As of a few minutes ago, Hunter Gaddis was sixth in the American League setup men, and we had
Mm,
Cade Smith eighth, but that's
mm.
largely because he hasn't had the same amount of opportunities as the guys ahead of him. Does
Right.
that surprise you at all?
It surprises me only relative to, again, a ridiculous workload taken on by very young arms last year. And we'll see. I mean, can they make it through this full season unscathed, that whole group? I'm still skeptical of that just because it's not what we're accustomed to seeing. But those guys are uber talented, man. They've got really sick stuff and they're so poised, you know. Cade Smith is just robotic in terms of how he goes about things. So he does not let the emotion, and we've seen it, with some ninth inning opportunities here of late, just doesn't let it get to him. And you go back and watch his performance against the Yankees last week, where I think it took him 6 pitches or maybe less to get through the ninth inning against that Yankees lineup. So,
Yeah.
they're really talented, but I think what's more impressive is just the poise, despite the relative lack of experience. And I'm very impressed with the start to the season. I mean, Hunter Gaddis hasn't allowed an earned run yet. Um, you know, I thought those guys might be running on fumes coming out the gate, but they did do a really good job of managing their workloads in spring training. So I think that's gone a long way.
That's very good. Now you've been around them pregame and postgame, so you can see how they are in the clubhouse and how they interact with
Right.
each other and how they let loose, how they prepare. What kind of stuff do they do?
Yeah, those guys have become pretty tight knit, because it is such a great group. Now, Class A gravitates more towards. It's interesting. They made a trade for Luis Ortiz, and those two are from the same area and are super tight. Ortiz is in the starting rotation, but yeah, I mean, you just see guys kind of feeding off each other. I've talked to them about that, where that was a big part of last year's performances. They just didn't want to let each other down, you know? So a real camaraderie builds up back there. I think that's only natural in bullpens, particularly good bullpens, right? We hear about the camaraderie in good bullpens.
Yeah,
But there's just a good attitude because these guys, Class A has been here. He's been defined. He's been established. But when you're talking about the Cade Smith, Tim Herron, Hunter Gaddis group, those guys basically came up together in this system and have achieved great things together so far at the major league level. So it's only natural that friendships develop.
right. And one newcomer to the Guardians this year has been Paul Sewald.
Yeah,
He came over from the Diamondbacks. He was their closer on the World Series run and gave up the big homer in the ninth to Corey Seager. And then last season, he had a great beginning of the season and then just completely fell apart. Now the Guardians are using him mostly as middle relief, kind of sixth inning. Um,
yeah.
what have you seen from Sewald? How well has he fit in with the group and his personality and stuff?
Well, I thought he was, an interesting addition for a team that we all know the Guardians aren't going to invest a great deal of money into their roster, and that's always makes it interesting to see where they do invest their money. And they spent a good amount on Carlos Santana to replace Josh Naylor at first base, and he's 39 years old. And they spent a good amount. It was about $7 million on Paul Sewald, who is in his mid 30s. And they don't have a lot of that in that clubhouse. They just don't have a lot of guys with gray hair like me. So I thought it was important in two respects. One, just being, the potential for lag effect in the bullpen from the workload last year, and two, just yeah, it's just having some gray hairs, having some experience in there. As a guy who was in the World Series a couple of years ago, and a guy who's reinvented himself along the way in his major league career, so that's important to have. Now, in terms of the performance, it's not there yet. I do think we've seen some batted ball luck with him in the very early going, and that's contributed to probably a ERA that's I believe it's north of 6. It's probably more inflated than it otherwise would have been. He's striking out guys at a good clip. He limits walks at a decent clip. It's just a matter of getting that time to settle into the season, which they got some young arms that you haven't even seen yet, or at least not yet this season. Um, so you always wonder, if a veteran guy is not getting the job done. But again, with the money they've invested in him, I'd imagine they give him a longer leash than maybe they otherwise would with, a veteran player on basically a token salary. So we'll see. But I will say that, some troubling signs in terms of, getting opponent slug, what they're doing off him in terms of that. But I do think there's been some bad batted ball luck as well.
Okay. We're close to done here. Is there anything that you want to tell fans who haven't really seen the Guardians pen, anything to tell about them or anything to look for when they do see them?
I would just say that what you see is not even what you get. They called up a couple kids last year towards the end of the season, Eric Zabrowski and Zach Walters, and we haven't even seen those guys yet in 2025. And they very easily could have been on the opening day roster based off what we saw from the last year. They made the playoff roster, over some guys who had been with the team pretty much all season. So keep your eye out for them. And Franco Alaman was the guy that really. How could he not catch your eye if you see this kid? He's like 7 feet tall or something, and throws the what out of the ball. He got hung up in camp with a hernia issue, but he's working his way back from that, and I think he'll be definitely a name to watch at some point this season. So I guess the moral of the story is sometimes teams have a magic run like the Guardians had last year with some young players, and everything just kind of comes together as it did with that bullpen group, but that might have only been the beginning. They're really good at developing arms in the Cleveland system. We typically think about that in terms of the starting rotation, but I think they've run a little bit dry there. And, the real meat is actually on the relief side right now. So I don't think they're going to have a historically great bullpen again, but they might be all right back there, even with the crazy workloads they took on last season.
All right. Well, thanks for being on the show, Anthony. This was our pleasure. Hope to have you back sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
It is time for the top finishers in individual power rankings after the months of March and April. Statistics include every regular season game in the months of March and April. To qualify for the rankings, there is a minimum of 8 relief appearances required. A link to our ranking methods is in the description box below this video. First is the American League middle relievers. Number 5 with 36.9 from the Tampa Bay Rays, Garrett Clevenger. Number 4 with 37.5 comes from the Detroit Tigers, Tommy Kahnle. At number 3 from the Houston Astros, scoring 45.3, Steven Okert. Number 2 with 46.5 from the Toronto Blue Jays, Yimi Garcia. And you already know number 1, but we'll say him again, from the Minnesota Twins with 57.1, our AL middle reliever of the month, Danny Coulombe. Now the National League middle relievers. Number 5 comes from the Los Angeles Dodgers with a score of 31.2, Ben Kasparius. Number 4 and number 3 both come from the San Diego Padres. At number 4 with a score of 32.1, Adrian Morejon. And number 3 with 38.0, Wandy Peralta. At number 2 with a score of 43.1 from the Milwaukee Brewers, Nick Mears. And number 1 from the San Francisco Giants with 47.3, our National League middle reliever of the month, Randy Rodriguez. Turning now to the American League setup men. Number 5 has 89.1 points from the New York Yankees, Fernando Cruz. Number 4 with 90.2 from the Cleveland Guardians, Cade Smith. Number 3 with 97.8 from the Athletics, Tyler Ferguson. Number 2 with 101.2 from the Texas Rangers, Chris Martin. And number 1 by a narrow margin with 103.9 from the Kansas City Royals, our American League setup man of the month, Lucas Erceg. Next, the National League setup men. At number 5 with 86.3 from the Arizona Diamondbacks, Shelby Miller. Number 4 with 86.9 from the New York Mets, Reed Garrett. Number 3 with 92.1 from the Cincinnati Reds, Graham Ashcraft. At number 2 with 97.9 from the St. Louis Cardinals, Phil Maton. And number 1 by a significant margin, we've already talked about him, but we'll mention him again, with 116.7 from the San Diego Padres, our National League Setup Man of the Month, Jason Adam. To the American League closers, number 5 from the Athletics and with 106.0 points, Mason Miller. At number 4 with 116.9 points from the New York Yankees, Luke Weaver. Number 3 comes from the Houston Astros with 121.6 points, Josh Hader. Number 2 with 128.7 from the Toronto Blue Jays, Jeff Hoffman. And number 1 with 164.9 from the Seattle Mariners, our AL closer of the month, Andres Munoz. And finally, the National League closers. Number 5 with 77.0 from the Chicago Cubs, Ryan Presley. Number 4 with 83.5 from the New York Mets, Edwin Diaz. Number 3 with 88.3 from the San Francisco Giants, Ryan Walker. Number 2 from the Philadelphia Phillies with 115.8, Jose Alvarado. And number 1 with 142.0 from the San Diego Padres, our National League closer of the month, Robert Suarez. That concludes this installment of Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza from Sport Relay. Join us next time when we should have some injury updates and we'll reveal our weekly power rankings for Week 6. I'll also probably be over this vicious sinus infection. I'm Evan Thompson, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like. Click subscribe so you'll never miss an episode of this show or of our other show, Trade Trees. Tell your friends and baseball contacts. If you haven't done so yet, consider buying my books, A Complete History of the Major League Baseball Playoffs, Volume 1 and Volume 2. There are links in the description box below this video. And finally, bookmark and regularly visit sportrelay.com. Until next time, this is Evan Thompson saying so long for now.